have changed from the time when you were growing up on the reservation?
Well, it was all horse and buggy at that time, and we didn't have no machines of any kind, and we cut our grain at combine. Hook about 8 head horses on there, and then at that time we shocked all our grain, and the thrashing machine was pulled with horses, 4 head horses. Even the engine was drawn, horse drawn. And we used to haul our grain to the separator, and we didn't have no blowers that time. It was just a big pole across, and it went over the stack of hay that is straw. And 2 fellers on each end of that pole would ride that thing up there.
Was there quite a bit of farming on the reservation at that time? Did Indians do a lot of farming?
Yeah, there was quite a few farming then. I don't think there's very many farms anymore.
Why do you think that there aren't very many Indians farming anymore?
I don't know just exactly now. Because at that time, everybody farmed. And that's what I said, it was all farmed with them heel burners. Walk all day behind one of them things, and you didn't feel like getting out and doing like they do, run around the tracks and whatnot. When evening come, you was ready to hit the sack. Lots of times I didn't get to bed till 11 o'clock. By the time you get through your feeding your stock out and everything. Tell you, that was a job of cleaning the barns out and cleaning the kraals.
What was it like at that time having no fences around?
It was pretty good. There was stock all over. But there was no water in them potholes like they do now. If you had to water your stock, you had to go clean down to creek, chase them clean down to creek, and then let them feed back. As I know, I heard stock for old Joe Pablo. we'd start from the Pablo down there and come work our way up. And you couldn't water anything not unless you hit a creek or something. And we used to cross with our cattle way down below the mission here and come out there to Ravala. In them days there wasn't hardly any road. Even we go to Ravala and you had to cross it and go along that hill over there. You couldn't hardly pass a wagon or anything else. It was a narrow road, just like a cow trail. And buffaloes were laying all along the hill there from where the road is now, clean up past Bob Shaw's. All that hill, that was all buffaloes. I know I've heard cattle there on this side of the hill where the buffalo fence is now. And then I've worked in them logging camps. Get a bunch of logs to come on down the hill. You'd hook down about 6 or 7 logs down and start, and you'd holler, "Look out below." And they'd come and, boy, I'll tell you, them things like a shot out of a gun, where they'd come down the hill. Get down, and you had to, they had wagons, and that wagon, the logs, clean down to Flathead. That's where our loading place was. And up here to Jocko, was putting it the same, and we'd haul our logs clean down there to that big curve, what they call Dirty Corner above our lee. Haul our logs there and load up the train. Take maybe 1 good log or 2 good logs. They'd fill the train. Sometimes you'd get 3 on there. You get the top end of a log and put on top. Some days we had logs. We didn't have little fence posts like they got now, called logs. You take what they're hauling now and what we used to haul. I'll bet them trucks couldn't move out the tracks, they'd break down. Like even up there at Evero, that sawmill they had up there, up to Evero, I was the first one that ever put a log in that mill. And boy, I'll tell you, there were logs. Take 1 or 2, that's all 4 horses could handle, from way back up on the hill.
At what time were you doing that kind of work?
Oh, it was long in the teens.
And Who were you working for?
I worked for Maudry up here. And then I forget now that big mill, big saw outfit up here, up Jocko, and Evero. I worked for Henry Matt. There were two of us hauling logs up there. Me and Bear's dad. We was only two hauling for old Henry Matt. That's one time Putner got married. Henry Matt's daughter, one of them. And finally pulled out. I went to Wyoming and then went on to Colorado, come back into Wyoming. And I was there and worked on the CC camp. I've done everything in the CC camp they could think of. Even, he got me down even in the blacksmith shop.
Why did you leave the reservation?
No work. And wherever I heard there was work, that's where I was headed for. I even got down to where picking strawberries there in Hamilton, around Hamilton, and between Hamilton and Darby. Apples, potatoes.
How was that going back to the Bitterroot to work after your own family had come from there?
I don't know just how. After I cut the potatoes away, I drifted on the other way. Even went up around up from and stacked hay up around above Drummond and round in there. I used to do all that. I had this bum arm then. Because I was just a young fellow when I lost that arm. And like even riding race horses. I tell you, one at a little bit shy of, but after that way I forgot about it. Put my foot on one horse and my foot on the other horse and stand there and run. And come back around, slide off of these. There's two more waiting for you. You stand up on them and keep it going. And I used to ride a little bit in them rodeos. After they got to flanking them, I quit. because they don't do nothing, only kick up. Some of them, they get too tight and they fall up against a fence or anything else. That's what made me quit riding. But I did like it when I was working for Ed Shaw, because I didn't have nothing much to do, just handle them race horses.
After you left the reservation, you were traveling around Wyoming, Colorado. Did you run into any problems as an Indian man at that time in this country?
No. And even when they started the CCs, they wasn't going to let any outsiders come in and work. And after they opened it up so to let the Indians come in from the outside, why, it's pretty good. I've even went and took trucks and went up towards Texas and up there and picked up some them fellas who wanted to work, bring them down. North Dakota, pick some of them up. Wherever they wanted to, wherever they called for workers, head off out there and pick them up. Some of them had families and some of them just come alone, leave their families back there. Got so there wasn't a machine that I know how to run on the CC camp, but they keep you training other fellas.
How long did you work there?
I worked there about 6-7 years. And that's why I say between that way. I come down here to Folsom a couple of times and worked. The first time I went down there, worked with my dad, my stepdad. We worked there till spring coming, we quit and went back to Wyoming. And then later on I come with my brother and his wife. We come down there and we worked there till spring started. And one morning he says to me, he says, well, we quit. I said, all right. So we turned in our ticket on from our cap, turned that in. We did no more than turn that in, and the next morning was when all that whole bunch got killed. We come and camped over here by Bob Shaw's on this side of the track. And that morning, there was a fellow come over early that morning. He says, you want it up there in the mission. So we loaded up and come back here to the mission. And here was all my companions that I was working with. all laying there dead. And one feller, we met one feller here at the store, and he says to me, he says, "What you doing here?" I said, "I quit." He said, "Well," he says, "like me," he says, just going back to work." He says, "I've been gone," he says, "for 2 weeks." I said, "How come? We didn't even miss him." Well, his mother got sick, and he says, I had to come over. So he was up there for a week and a half in Missoula, and he was just going back to work, and I'd be doggone if he wasn't one of them that got killed. I said, dirt just dropped down. You ought to go down to that dam and see that road we used to travel right straight down. There was no road then. It just looked like cow trail.
Were there other people who quit just before the accident besides you?
I don't know.
Tell me more about why you quit.
Well, that's just what we quit. Well, we had to go back to Wyoming, and my brother's wife was the one that belly ached and wanted to go back right away. So we quit. And that next morning was when them guys got killed.